Well, my friends, it is so good to get to be with you here today on this sunny Sunday. It's so good to be with you. And today we're in for a real treat because you don't have to listen to me gab very much. Don't raise your hands to tell me how excited you are about that. I'll just kind of leave that to my imagination. But today I am thrilled to introduce a very special guest we have for us. You know, something that we believe in here at Riverside is that we don't hold the monopoly on taking care of people and sharing Jesus with everybody. That'd make us a little big-headed, and that's just not how life works. And so 10% of everything that we bring in here at Riverside goes out to people who are expanding the gospel locally, regionally, and globally as well. And from time to time, we get some of the people who we sponsor and support to come and share the wonderful work that they're doing. And so we have one of these wonderful people here today, and it's right in line with what we've been talking about. You know, lately we've been talking about what it means to be with Jesus, to become like him, and to do as he did. And we talked a little bit about what it means to follow Jesus, what it means to be formed by Jesus. And today my friend Rick here is going to share a little bit about what him and his ministry does to be the hands and the feet of Jesus in the world. And it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful time. So I'm going to invite Rick Kemmer up to the stage here to share a little bit about that. Will you please give him a warm hand as we get to spend some time with him here today?
Thank you, Pastor Andrew. All right. Well, good morning. It's great to be here again. It's been a long time. You know, technology is a great thing. If it weren't for technology, I really couldn't even do what we do. It has opened the doors in ways that have been amazing. Pastor Andrew and I were just talking about it. Or was it Paul? Oh, me and Paul were talking about how, you know, I get to talk with people in places that don't even have electricity. I get to talk to them a video call on our smartphones. Is that amazing? But then you get to play with these challenges of it. I'm going to go ahead and start off, and I want to start off by letting you all know that I am not a trained pastor. I am not an ordained minister. So if you're expecting a normal sermon this morning, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. But hopefully, that you'll take away from this talk this morning an encouragement to know that God has a unique plan for each and every one of us, regardless of the skills or abilities we think we have or even that we think we don't have. So I became a Christian when I was 30, and my life was changed forever. And I've collected a few favorite verses over the years as I've tried to grow in my understanding and grow in my faith. And I quickly noticed that one of the predominant topics in the Bible is love. And so it'd be a good idea to find out what is love, right? And so we do find in this verse, this is 1 John chapter 4, 15 and 16, where we learn that God is love. So if anyone acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God lives in them and they in God. And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. So I figured I'd better find out what love is. And so, of course, I landed on 1 Corinthians 13, which many people believe is the most concise and definitive explanation of love. So in chapter 12, Paul's writing about our uniqueness and how God's created each one of us with our own set of spiritual gifts and skills and abilities, and how each one of us is this, it's like we're each a unique piece of the puzzle that fits into God's perfect plan. So, at the end of chapter 12, he then says, and yet I will show you the most excellent way. Now I've got to get mine working. Which I think is like, okay, so the most excellent way, the way of love. And so 1 Corinthians 13 says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am but a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and surrender my body to the flames, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when perfection comes, the imperfect disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. For now we see but as a poor reflection in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. For now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. So as we're learning to love ourselves and to love other people, and as we're looking for how to share God's love with others, I think it's a great idea for us to run our plans, our thoughts, and our ideas through the filter of what is love and what is loving behavior and action. When we put ourselves out there and make ourselves more vulnerable, put ourselves in uncomfortable situations, when we're bold and we're brave and we try new things, I think we should carefully listen to how God may be whispering to us and guiding us. So a year and a half after I became a Christian, I decided to try something new and different and bold and put myself in a vulnerable situation. And so I signed up to go on a church work team to a developing country to help build a church. And my life was changed forever again as I, for the first time, encountered extreme poverty face to face on that work trip to Haiti in 1991. There are experiences and images from that trip like the picture I took of this little girl collecting firewood for her family. Those things are permanently burned into my memory. The experience set the course of my life for the next 35 years, up to right now. And there are some questions that I've been asking ever since that time. Questions like, why are there so many hungry people in the world? Is it possible to eradicate world hunger? Is it possible to eradicate poverty? How do I show and share God's love to people who are struggling with poverty? Why are so many children under the age of 5 dying each and every day from totally preventable things? And what is poverty? So, today we're going to take a look at some of those questions. We're certainly not going to answer them all, but we're going to look at them. And as we're looking, I'd like you to keep this guy in mind. That is Kosi Aviuli, and he is dealing with the issues of poverty every day. He's a husband, a father, a pastor, a generally happy guy, and he does lots of different things to provide for his family. He lives with his wife, Emiyovi, and their 5 children in a village called Atakpame, Togo. The International Monetary Fund lists Togo as the 10th poorest country in the world. And So just like most of his neighbors, Kosi and his family struggle with those issues of extreme poverty every day. You know, we all have our challenges, our daily challenges, but for Kosi, most of his are quite dire, and they almost all revolve around survival. From the time they're old enough to help, each member of his family focuses daily on the basics of life. Things that most of us are able to take for granted, like providing for enough food, collecting water and firewood, bringing in enough money for school fees and clothing and medicine. It's a nonstop challenge. Some of the most ingenious and talented people I know are people, quite often they have very little education, but they manage to keep their families surviving while facing these kinds of issues. Well, unfortunately, Kosi's story is not unique in our world. So let's zoom out a bit from this individual story and take a closer look at some of the staggering statistics about poverty in our world. 18% of the people across 110 countries live in acute multidimensional poverty. That's 1 billion out of 6 billion, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia, which are home to over 80% of the world's population living in poverty. 202 million children under the age of 5 live in severe food poverty. They have extremely poor diets that include, at most, 2 food groups, putting them at risk for death, for stunting, which is under height for age, and for wasting, which is underweight for height and age. 1 in 4 people of the global population, that's over 2 billion people, lack access to safely managed drinking water. Contaminated water and poor sanitation are linked to the transmission of many diseases and expose individuals to preventable health risks. So let's take a look at that question of what is poverty. The complex nature of poverty is like a puzzle composed of interconnected pieces. So to understand a shared perspective, we need to take a look at the fundamental elements. First, a lack of resources embodies the scarcity of basic necessities like shelter, food, water, healthcare. It's the stark reality of not having enough to meet essential needs. Second, a lack of opportunities encompasses limited access to education, employment, and avenues for growth. It's a barrier that hinders progress. Third, consider a lack of time, not in the literal sense, but the perpetual struggle for survival that consumes time which would otherwise be used for growth, learning, or other meaningful pursuits. And last, a lack of nutrition encapsulates the deprivation of adequate food, leading to malnutrition and all of its dire consequences. This multidimensional perspective gives us a starting point to consider some of the formidable challenges in answering the next question. Is it possible to eradicate poverty? So the pervasive reach of poverty is not merely an economic issue, but a systemic barrier to a dignified life for millions, affecting access to education, healthcare, and basic necessities. Severe malnutrition plagues too many people, particularly the most vulnerable, children and pregnant women, leading to issues of immunity and infant and maternal mortality, stunting or wasting, and it can lead to permanent lifelong disabilities. The scarcity of clean drinking water perpetuates health crises in many areas. Without access to safe drinking water, families face increased issues and risks with waterborne diseases and continually compromise general health. As communities struggle with limited resources, they resort to practices that harm their ecosystems, which intensifies environmental degradation and just deepens the poverty. Limited opportunities for education, training, and jobs trap individuals and communities in a cycle of financial instability, which perpetuates the struggle. And persistent health challenges encompass not only physical ailments, but also mental health issues, making it challenging for individuals to break free from the cycle of illness and poverty. Each of these challenges stands as a formidable hurdle and demands our unwavering attention and our collective efforts. So, understanding the critical need to address these challenges is imperative. Let's look like taking action is essential. Addressing the hardships of poverty isn't merely a choice. It's a duty ingrained within our shared humanity, our fundamental responsibility to uphold human dignity and alleviate suffering. As we've seen, poverty isn't a single issue. It's a deeply intertwined combination of many issues. Likewise, there is no single or simple solution. A comprehensive approach demands addressing these interconnected challenges collectively. Under the umbrella of community development, Strong Harvest is able to address the challenges and the very nature of poverty within the communities that struggle the most. Our first priority is to approach solutions through grassroots engagement. We go directly to the families in the communities where they live. Community development starts and lives at the family level, at that grassroots level. Our field representatives who provide our training in these different places are members of these communities. They know the languages, they understand the cultures and the issues that are faced there. And they have an ownership stake in the success of the program. All of them have personally felt the sting of poverty and the hopelessness associated with it. The immediate effect of our program is better nutrition and consistent access to healthy food and improved drinking water. This results in better health outcomes which impact every aspect of life. The next approach is empowerment through education. Next one. Knowledge is power. If Strong Harvest were to cease operations tomorrow, those thousands who have already received our training would continue to put that into action and to share it with others. The methods adopted by Strong Harvest enable individuals to reclaim precious time, and that enhances economic sustainability. They can allocate that reclaimed time for other activities, including education, community involvement, and investing in their future. Finally, Strong Harvest is committed to the long term, not just the hungry bellies of today. Our programs are designed to break the cycle of poverty by changing the dynamic and setting into motion continuing community development. So what can we offer as a solution to some of these problems that poverty brings? The moringa tree. It's a botanical marvel that's at the center and heart of Strong Harvest's initiatives. Its abundant virtues seamlessly weave into our mission, nurturing lives and entire communities with a natural bounty. Okay, Doesn't look all that grand, does it? Sorry. That's just how God does stuff, you know? And you know what I just said, that sounds a bit like hyperbole, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, let's look at how that is not hyperbole and how this is actually a very grand tree. So what is moringa? It's a multi-purpose, drought-resistant, fast-growing tree that grows right where most of the people who struggle with poverty in our world live. The map on the top shows where malnutrition is most prevalent, and the map on the bottom shows where moringa grows and thrives. For me, as a Christian, that is a beautiful picture of God's love. That tells me He knows exactly where I am and exactly what I need. When people make moringa part of their daily lives, some truly important things happen. Health is improved when moringa leaves are added to the daily diet because those leaves are packed with nutrition, vitamins, minerals, all the essential amino acids, antioxidants, and protein. That's over 90 different nutrients are in this single plant. And when moringa seeds are added to dirty water, they remove over 90% of the impurities, greatly reducing the incidence of waterborne diseases. These two things together, improved health through good nutrition and clean water, dramatically improve the health of a family. And this improved health also allows the family to retain some of those precious finances that would otherwise go to the doctor, the clinic, or to buy medicine. In addition, there are many moringa products that can be made and sold in the local market to bring in new family income. And of course, whenever you plant a tree, you are improving the environment in all the different ways that trees contribute to our lives. All of this from one simple tree. Next slide. After 20 years at this, that's still amazing to me that all of that comes from one tree. I haven't heard of any other plant that even comes close to the value of this one. Through the moringa tree, Strong Harvest cultivates empowerment. Its rapid growth and ability to thrive in challenging environments reflects our ethos, empowering individuals to overcome obstacles and build resilience. So you remember Kosi, right? Thinking about him as we're talking about these other things. Well, here's the rest of his story. In 2017, Pastor Kosi and his wife Ameovi, together with 37 others in their community, were trained as Strong Harvest peer educators by our field representative in Togo, Jean Abou. Kosi said this: "After the training, I planted trees and my wife made sauce and tea with the fresh leaves that we took morning and evening. For the children, she mixed moringa leaf powder with corn flour to make porridge. And by the grace of God, our entire family is in good health." A couple of years later, in 2019, Jean returned to Kosi's village and did a continuing education workshop. And Kosi and Ameovi learned how to make moringa products like soap and ointment. Kosi said this: "Right after the training, I formed a group with some of my church members. We started to work together in making these moringa products. Everyone who uses these products is satisfied with cures of diseases and other issues." By August 2019, the family was earning an additional 20,000 francs, that's about $36 every month, from selling their homemade moringa products. And then a few years later, just last year, Kosi and his family visited Jean at his place and to tell him that they had purchased land with the proceeds of their moringa business. That is huge. They're very grateful to Strong Harvest, and they're excited about their future. And this is a wonderful example of the abundance that Strong Harvest cultivates in people's lives. By putting into action the knowledge and tools that they received, Kosi and his family have been able to take charge of not only their health, their physical health, but also their financial health and the health of the environment that they're living in. Pastor Kosi and other Christians who've received our training can use this knowledge to reach into their communities with God's love, much in the same way Jesus did, meeting our tangible needs while sharing the good news of salvation. The impact of our Moringa program reverberates across generations, launching a legacy of self-reliance and prosperity as children who grow up with Moringa just naturally carry it into their own households. It creates a pathway to success that isn't just about planting trees. It's about nurturing lives, fostering hope, and sowing the seeds of sustainable change. Here at Riverside, you all have supported us for many years, starting when we were serving the Church of God in Tanzania and continuing with support for Strong Harvest. Your involvement is pivotal, not only as a congregation, but I also want to invite you as individuals to join hands with us on this transformative journey. Together, we can propel change, empower lives, and build thriving communities. Your donations drive our initiatives forward. Your generosity isn't just a gift, it's an investment in creating a brighter, more equitable future for generations. It's the cornerstone of our collective effort to cultivate resilience and prosperity in the communities that need it the most. If you're interested in making a donation, it's really easy. You have multiple options. There's a QR code on our website to make online donations, or if you want to make check or cash donations, we have forms out on our table out in the foyer. You can mail in or just give to me. Also, I want to highlight the power of recurring donations, like the donation this congregation makes each month. That's the foundation that we use for building our monthly budget, and it's a tremendous way to make an ongoing commitment to our cause. It sets up a consistent, continuous impact on the lives most in need. Okay, so if you're like me, and like many other people, you look at these issues of poverty, at the statistics, at the huge numbers, and you think it's too much. It's too overwhelming. There's nothing I can do that can make a change. I want to tell you that is simply not true. You guys are making a change. You can make a change. People just like you all over the world are making that kind of a change. When we first started teaching about Moringa, that was in the year 2000, I started paying attention to a really difficult statistic. In the year 2000, 27,000 children under the age of 5 died each and every day, mostly from totally preventable things, and about half of them from nutrition-related issues. Well, I am thrilled to report that number was reduced to 14,000 by the year 2020. That is a huge success, and that's through the collective efforts of many different groups, including Strong Harvest. It's still a totally unacceptable number. No number in that whole statistic is acceptable, but these statistics show the positive and negative parts of it motivate us to do even more because we know it's working. People often, when they're considering, supporting an organization, they want to know the measurables, the numbers, and those are important. It's good to know the numbers, to look at them, and to really consider what's this group doing before I start supporting them. Excuse me. So I do have numbers for you, and we have even more, but some of the most important are that we have over 10,000 people have received some form of our training in 26 different countries, including 2,964 fully trained peer educators. We've distributed 2,250 Strong Harvest Moringa training manuals in 8 different languages, 810 Moringa children's books, and we've distributed over 48,000 Moringa seeds, saplings, or cuttings. Those are just the numbers. The measurables that motivate me and impact my heart have names: Gracia, Benjamin, Samueli. They're all children who would most likely have died without the moringa that their parents gave them because of our training. I am completely humbled to have a job that involves saving babies' lives. I can't think of a more worthwhile way to spend my life. So I want to leave you with one last story, the story about Clementine and Gracia. But later, do go to our website. There's a couple other stories, one about Benjamin, the other about Samueli. They're short videos that you can watch, and I would encourage you to do that. So Clementine lives in a rural village in West Africa. When her 4th child was born premature, she was so small and weak that the family was not sure if she would survive. And honestly, in that scenario, that situation, most often the babies do not survive being born premature. Well, I got to visit Clementine at her home, and I interviewed her, and she told me this. She said, Gracia was born 2 months early, and I was really scared. Then I remembered my Strong Harvest Moringa training, where I learned that moringa increases milk production. I started using moringa leaves in my daily tea, and my milk came in strong. Gracia is now a healthy baby. Moringa played a critical role in this child's survival. Before Gracia was born, Clementine had received Strong Harvest peer educator training, and she learned about the basics of nutrition and all the benefits of moringa and how to grow it and cultivate and harvest and all that. And then she planted some moringa trees in a shared yard in her neighborhood. And then she kind of didn't think much more about it. And then her pastor was visiting her and saw that Gracia was struggling. And he said, Clementine, remember your training about that moringa tree. And that's when she started adding it to her daily tea. And, moringa is a natural galactagogue, which is, it promotes the production of milk in nursing mothers. So it just turned Gracia's life around and rescued her from the tragedy that way too many families struggle with. So the impact of moringa and the impact it has on families reminds me of another one of my favorite verses. This is Isaiah 58, verse 6 through 11. It says, "Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe them and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and he will say, "Here am I." If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your generous support propels our initiatives, enabling us to create lasting change. It's instrumental in nurturing lives, fostering prosperity, and building resilient communities. Together, we're making a tangible difference in the world we share, and I just can't thank you enough for being on our team and part of our support network. Well, one thing, if we have a second here, I would like to share this also, that we start with Moringa, but we are interested in holistic community development. It spins off into other things. For instance, in northern Tanzania, one of our field representatives, his name is Lata. He's a Maasai. He lives in his Maasai community, and they're primarily pastoralists, but they've kind of been forced to settle down in the last several decades due to encroachment and all that. But he teaches in a slightly different way. You know, it's not this linear 2-day seminar he does. He goes back to the same groups over and over and over again until they've received all the knowledge. And then they become peer educators. And several, I think we're up to 5 or 6 now, of those peer educator groups have gone on their own initiative and formed government-recognized savings groups. So they get this metal lockbox with 3 locks on it. Nobody has all 3 keys. You know, it's all well organized, and they track it. They're actually really good with math and money and stuff. They handle it really well. Anyway, so these become basically self-funded microfinance banks. And so one of the projects that they've decided to fund is a water catchment project. So these savings groups would loan money to a family that has built, instead of the normal round house with a grass roof, they've built a rectangular building, and then the savings group loans that person the money to put on a metal roof, right? And then Strong Harvest raised some funds to provide water tanks, plastic water tanks, and they now can catch the rainwater from these metal roofs into the water tanks. First time ever that people have been able to do that in that area, which keeps them from having to go like every day or 2, 10 kilometers to go fetch water from the nearest well. Instead, they watch as the rain falls, it fills this tank, and they're good for a couple of weeks. So that kind of thing is just one example of the spin-offs that happen as people just start to get a handle on that kind of control over their finances, their health, and all of that. It's just kind of a natural progression. So, and again, you guys you're doing this. We're part of it, certainly. You know, we're the ones on the front. We're organizing it and all that. But without you guys supporting us, we wouldn't have anything to work with. We wouldn't have the finances needed to do this. So, thank you so much.